The moment my sister tried to unlock the front door with her own key, I knew everything had gone exactly as planned. I stood across the street, coffee in my hand, watching my family pull into the driveway. My parents climbed out first. Then my sister Emily stepped out of her car carrying boxes. Boxes. Not bags. Not gifts. Moving boxes. Just like she had promised. A week earlier, she had stood in my living room, looked around at the house I had worked years to afford, and casually announced, "This place is actually worth living in. I'll move in next weekend." As if the house belonged to her. As if I had no say. As if my entire life existed to serve her. At first, I thought she was joking. Then I looked at my parents. They weren't laughing. They were nodding. And that's when I realized something painful. They truly believed Emily had more right to my house than I did. What they didn't know was that I had spent the entire week preparing for this moment. And Sunday had finally arrived. The golden child. Growing up, my sister Emily was always the favorite. Everyone knew it. Even relatives joked about it. If Emily got A B in school, my parents celebrated. If I got straight A's, they asked why one score wasn't higher. If Emily forgot to do chores, it was because she was busy. If I forgot, I was lazy. For years, I tried to earn their approval. I worked harder, studied harder, stayed out of trouble. Nothing changed. Emily always came first. When I turned 18, I moved out and started building my own life. No help. No family money. No shortcuts. I worked long shifts, took extra jobs, saved every dollar I could. Meanwhile, Emily bounced between apartments, quit jobs every few months, and somehow still received financial help from my parents. Every time she made a bad decision, they rescued her. Every time I succeeded, they acted like it wasn't a big deal. Eventually, I stopped expecting anything from them. I focused on myself. And slowly, life started getting better. Much better. 3. The secret purchase. 3 years ago, I started dreaming about owning a home. Not a mansion. Just something that was mine. A place nobody could take away. So I saved aggressively. Skipped vacations. Drove an old car. Worked weekends. There were moments when I wanted to quit. Moments when buying a house felt impossible. But I kept going. Then one day it happened. I signed the papers. The keys were finally in my hand. I remember sitting alone in the empty living room. No furniture. No decorations. Just silence. And pride. For the first time in my life, I had achieved something completely on my own. That's why I didn't tell my family. Not because I hated them. Because I wanted one thing in my life that belonged only to me. For a few weeks, everything was peaceful. Then somehow Emily found out. And everything changed. The visit that changed everything. The call came on a Thursday. My mother sounded excited. "We heard you bought a house." I froze. I hadn't told anyone. Someone must have mentioned it. A neighbor. A relative. Maybe social media. I wasn't sure. A few days later, they asked to visit. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Big mistake. The second Emily walked inside, she started acting like a real estate agent. She criticized rooms, opened closets, talked about furniture, asked where she'd put things. At first, I thought she was being weird. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "This guest room is perfect for me." I laughed. She didn't. Neither did my parents. The room suddenly felt colder. Then Emily smiled and said, "Actually, I think I'll move in next weekend." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. She was serious. Completely serious. The real betrayal. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Emily shrugged. "You live alone. You have extra space." My father nodded. Family helps family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had bought the house. I paid every mortgage payment, every bill, every repair. And somehow they were discussing who would live there without even asking me. Then my mother made it worse. "It would help your sister get back on her feet." Back on her feet? Emily was 30 years old. She had spent years making reckless choices while expecting everyone else to solve her problems. And now they expected me to become her newest rescue plan. I told them no. Clearly. Politely. Firmly.
No.
The room went silent. Then came the guilt, the pressure, the disappointment. They acted as if I had committed a crime, as if refusing to give away part of my home made me selfish. By the time they left, I felt exhausted. But I also realized something important. They weren't going to accept my answer. And that's when I started planning. The next morning, I remembered something. While touring the house, Emily had jokingly asked for a spare key. At the time, I thought nothing of it. But now I wasn't so sure. So I called a locksmith. Every lock was replaced. Front door, back door, garage, everything. The locksmith asked if there was a problem. I laughed. Not yet. Then I installed security cameras. Not because I expected trouble, because I wanted proof if trouble came. A few days later, my mother called again. She casually mentioned that Emily was excited about moving. Excited. As if the decision had already been made. That's when I knew. They weren't listening. They genuinely believed they could force this. So I said nothing. I simply waited.
For Sunday.
The moment everything fell apart. Sunday morning arrived. Right on schedule. 3 cars pulled into the driveway. My parents, Emily, and a friend helping her move. I watched from across the street. Emily marched to the front door confidently. Then she pulled out a key.
A key.
She really thought she had access. The key went into the lock. Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. Confusion appeared on her face. Then frustration. Then panic. My parents walked over. Everyone started trying. Nobody could get inside. That's when I crossed the street. Emily immediately pointed at the door. The key doesn't work. I know. Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I changed the locks. Silence. Complete silence. Then the explosion began. The lesson they never expected. Emily accused me of embarrassing her. My parents accused me of being cruel. I listened calmly. Then I asked a simple question. Why were you trying to move into my house without permission? Nobody answered. Because there was no answer. Only entitlement. Only assumptions. Only years of believing Emily deserved whatever she wanted. For the first time in my life, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply stood my ground. And eventually the truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't about family. It was about boundaries. Something they had never respected. After 20 minutes of complaints, they finally left. The moving boxes went back into the cars. The driveway became quiet again. And for the first time, my house truly felt like mine. Months later, Emily still complains about what happened. My parents still think I should have helped. Maybe they're right. Maybe I could have helped. But helping someone is a choice, not an obligation. And nobody gets to claim ownership of something you sacrificed years to build. Because the biggest lesson I learned wasn't about houses.
It was about respect.
The people who love you should celebrate your success, not treat it like something they're entitled to share. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say one simple word.
No.
And mean it. The end.